Hey guys, today's story is about an OP where everyone they know seems to not be playing with a full deck of cards. Back in about 2013 or 14, my husband and I joined a 5e group ran by my husband's boss, Dylan. Dylan's wife, Jane, was also part of their group, as well as one of their childhood friends, Kevin. The group itself was never actually very small, starting out with 7 players. I was thrilled to bits to finally play in a D&D game, and excitedly bought a mini for my little gnome monk. Things were fine at first, but people kept joining, and Dylan realized that the game was getting too big for just him to handle. Sessions took way too long for us to stay, since we had a child and had to go pick him up and put him to bed, so we would dip out around 8. So Dylan enlisted some help from 2 of the 16 players and had them be secondary DMs. I mostly played with Dylan's group, and I was friends with his wife Jane, and we were getting closer as friends, and she began confiding some stuff in me. Some very personal things that I won't go into detail, as it doesn't pertain to the game, and secrets are safe with me. One night, I decided to branch out into the other DM circle. It was the same game, and we were supposed to be rotating, but none of the other players actually did that. I noticed Kevin was getting some pretty heavy plot points, Dylan giving him a succubus under his control, a keep that he was a lord of, and he became an alchemical master. He got a +10 sword, and a few other things that I can't remember. Meanwhile, I had to argue to get +1 gauntlets, or anything. I sat down with these dudes, being the only woman there, and right off the bat, things seemed off. I was introduced, but none of them greeted me. I sat there fiddling with my mini as the DM began describing the scene. It was a carnival, and one of the features was a haunted house. I said, "Oh, well, that sounds like fun. We should go into the haunted house." And nothing. No looks in my direction, no acknowledgement that I had said anything, and after a few seconds of silence, one of the guys said, "I think the haunted house seems like a good place to explore. Maybe there's something sinister in there." To which it immediately got agreement from everyone. "I literally just said that," I responded. The DM shot me a pitying look before continuing. The inside was decorated pretty mundanely, almost like they didn't even try to make it scary. A couple of jump scares, but the main attraction was this hallway. I said that I wanted to check for traps, and the DM had me roll. I got a high roll, and I could tell that this hallway was actually a mimic. Another player suddenly went, "I want to check for traps." To which the DM, looking confused, said, "She just did, and she saw it was a mimic," which garnered no response. At this point, I was starting to think I was a ghost, and only the DM could see me. Did I die on the way up here and I didn't realize it? That notion, however, didn't last long, as one of the other players said,
I pick up the doll and throw her.
"What? No! That's going to be a contested strength check." I thankfully managed to get a nat 20, and I beat it. So he went,
I try again.
"No, you did an action. Deal with the mimic. How are you going to get across?" "Yeah, I'm going to try to throw the gnome." In the end, all 4 of them tried to throw me, but my monk was lucky enough to not get thrown. The session ended with them pretty much doing much of the same, ignoring me except to offer me up as a sacrifice to the bad guy, or to try to throw me at them. I vented to my husband on the way home, because, understandably, I was very upset. He said that he didn't know why they did that to me, and that he had no issues. Then, about a week later, I was talking to one of the other girls about what had happened, and she said, "Yeah, one of those guys tried to rape my character." And if that wasn't enough, to add on to this person wasn't even 18 yet. I thought I was having an out-of-body experience. It turns out, not only did this guy have his character threaten hers, but he also tried to roll for it, and the DM said no. He then told her that if she wasn't careful, he would then follow her to the parking lot. Upon hearing this, I told her that she needed to report this to the DM, or the comic store owner, or someone. But she said no, because she didn't want to create a fuss. Plus, she didn't think it was that big of a deal. I, of course, told her that if he was threatening to follow her to her car, then yes, it is a big deal. Because what do you think would happen if he did actually decide to do just that? She said that she would say something next week, and that she just wanted to play tonight. She just wouldn't play in that guy's group. Eventually, the next week rolled by, and she told Dylan with Jane and Kevin right there. I wasn't around for her to say anything, but when I asked her, she said, "He didn't think it was a big deal, but if it made me uncomfortable, I could leave the game." At this point, I had had it with this stupid group. Between the favoritism of the main DM, and the treatment I had gotten 2 weeks before, and now this, I confronted him. I told him that it was ridiculous of him to not kick out a player that not only tried to rape another character, but threatened to follow her out to her car and do God knows what. To which his response was, "Well, it's only been 2 weeks. It would be weird if we kicked him out now." I was baffled at this, and I just blinked for a few seconds before I went and sat in the car for the 4 hours it took for the sessions to end. I told my husband what had been said. "Well, I've never had a problem with that guy, so I can kind of see his point." So if someone told me that they were going to follow me to the car, and I didn't have you around to stop them, that you'd be okay with this. Are you okay with someone threatening me? He said no, and I told him he needed to start showing the same compassion to other people. He was quiet for the rest of the trip, and when I got home, I noticed a group had been made on Facebook, and I was added to it. It was everyone who had heard what Dylan had said, and wanted to leave and make their own group. After some introductions and discussions, I decided I would be the one to DM for us from then on. And that's how I met that guy, but that's a story for another time. After we had left, I stayed tentative friends with Jane, and I found out that the guy who threatened the girl not only tried to cozy up to Dylan afterwards, but he also stole weed and money from them, would bang on their door at 2 a.m., try to move into their house, and try to get too close to Jane. I asked her what Dylan was going to do about it, and she said nothing, even though she asked him to kick him out. But instead of doing that, they just ended the campaign because they were moving away anyways. I stopped being friends with her once I found out some stuff about her later on, but that's neither here nor there. Well, guys, as I said in the intro, it doesn't really seem like anyone here was really playing with a full deck of cards. The husband couldn't get his head wrapped around the idea that threatening to rape a minor is a bad thing. The entire party of 4 people refusing to talk or acknowledge the OP, and then attempting to kill or abuse their character, and so on and so forth. I'd say that, hey, at least the OP got away from the problem players and whatnot, but that doesn't seem to be the case, considering that the OP makes mention of another story. But in any case, guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have a story that you'd like me to narrate, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching, and have a good one.